in state institutions. Conditions in prison and detention centers in Lebanon require urgent attention. I welcome the draft law to abolish the death penalty, building on the long-standing moratorium in the country, and I encourage its swift adoption by the Parliament. This will make Lebanon the first country in the region to do so. Recovery and reconstruction are not simply a logistics exercise. The relationship between the states and all its citizens needs to be strengthened to address perceptions of division and exclusion, and this was a concern relayed to me in particular by victims from the South. The social contract will need to be rebuilt, where all communities in Lebanon are respected in their dignity and human rights, and where the state is able to protect their rights and provide the services, safety and security they need. This also means full empowerment of the Lebanese state with full respect for its sovereignty and territorial integrity without external interference. I warmly thank the government of Lebanon for hosting my visit, and my office and my colleagues here on the ground remain ready to support Lebanon in the promotion and protection of human rights for all. Shukran.
Thank you, High Commissioner. And as the High Commissioner was speaking about our colleagues here, we're also joined by Mr. Mazen Shakura, who's head of the UN Human Rights Regional Office here in Lebanon. So we'll take questions. We'll take 3 at a time. And just a reminder that interpretation is also available, simultaneous interpretation. So we'll open the floor for questions, and as I mentioned, we'll take 3 at a time. And if we go over to, we'll just ask you to state your name and your media organization. Go ahead.
From the National News Agency. What concrete action can you take beyond documentation? We know that your office has repeatedly documented violations against civilians in Lebanon, and we know that this report did not stop these violations. So what kind of action can you take?
Okay. Let's open it up for another question. Yes.
Karim Shahib, Associated Press. I wanted to ask about the widespread displacement. At the peak of the war, we had 1.2 million people displaced. These were all from calls from the Israeli military to indefinitely evacuate areas, entire villages at a time. How is this interpreted under IHL? The Israeli military says this is a humanitarian act to prevent civilian suffering, but Human Rights Watch and other groups have said this, in fact, is against IHL. How do you interpret it, given that you've been able to document the wide-scale displacement and met with a lot of these families?
Thank you, Karim. Any other questions before we go around for the first set of responses? Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello, as a UN representative, how can you secure accountability regarding what happened in the South? You mentioned that thousands were killed, displaced, many areas were erased. So, as a UN representative, how can you secure accountability, especially that the Israeli Netanyahu is just running off accountability?
Yeah, first of all, the protection of civilians is absolutely paramount. And it is obviously, first and foremost, the responsibilities of those who stage war, in particular, this case, what we have seen over the last couple of months, Israel, but also Hezbollah. They need to respect international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Our role, my role, my office's role is to continue monitoring, documenting and reporting. We don't have enforcement powers. That's not within the mandate that is given to the United Nations. But the fact that we not only speak out, but also document and continue reporting about it, the fact that we have an assessment mission that is currently doing its work and going into great detail and analyzing as many incidents as we possibly can, will be a very important contribution, not only to telling the truth, identifying the facts, but also then applying international law to what we have been able to provide. And this, in a way, comes to the point that is the third one, and then I come to the displacement issue. On accountability. Accountability is always a very complex issue. And it is an issue that starts first and foremost with documenting, collecting the evidence, providing the facts, and making sure that there is truth-telling. I mean, the fact that the victims, not only those displaced, but also those affected directly in the south and in other parts of Beirut, especially in densely populated areas, that they are able to tell their story is extremely important, because we always want a victim-centered approach when it comes to accountability. Then there are domestic forms of accountability and there are international forms of accountability. The domestic forms, I understand there is currently a draft law under consideration in the Lebanese parliament about international humanitarian law, which is again very important for domestic purposes. There is also universal jurisdiction meaning that you can actually pursue perpetrators in those countries that apply universal jurisdiction. And again, the assessment that is being put forward by us is going to be important for these purposes. On displacement, I mean, we see a pattern of displacement that is extremely troubling, because the massive displacement that we saw at the height of the crisis, with over 1 million people being displaced, some of them not being able to return. I even met people who tried to return but were basically sent back because they even had to see in front of their eyes how the village is being destroyed, is a particular aspect that we have to look at from the perspective of whether this constitutes international crimes, and this is a particular area that my assessment mission is looking into.
I think we can take one more round of questions. Sorry,
I just answered accountability.
We'll take one more round of questions, and then we can go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Volker. It's Dalal Saud from United Press International. There are serious fears that in case of a new round of escalation or resumption of hostilities, this time Israel will proceed with this large, devastating destruction north of the Litani region. How would you see the situation in that case, with a larger section of, people being displaced, more villages destroyed, and how could that be stopped in one way or another? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Nada Homsi, The National. So Israel continues to demolish homes and villages in the south. I wanted to ask if the UN investigating team has access to occupied South Lebanon, south of Israel's so-called security zone, and if they don't, how can it ensure the documentation of potential war crimes that are ongoing as we speak?
Thank you. I'll just open it up to see if there are any other questions, and I'll come back to you. Okay, we can go to your follow-up question here.
My second question is about the framework agreement that has been recently reached, and Article 13. I don't know if you had this discussion with the Lebanese officials concerning the fact that in line with this article or clause, Lebanon will at least put on hold, all these documentation violation about Israeli war crimes. So during your discussion, there have been tackled that part, and what does it mean?
Look, on the first one, I mean, obviously, with all the ongoing negotiations that are taking place, and there will be ones that are going to take place in Rome, I think on the 4th of August, very important ones. I mean, I think the fervent hope of everyone is to ensure de-escalation, a respect for international humanitarian law, a withdrawal of troops, and a full empowerment by the Lebanese state to establish its presence. I mean, that's really the aim. So I don't want to speculate on anything beyond that, because the emphasis has to be on de-escalation and finding a way forward. There's no doubt about this. It is very important that my office is able to assess the situation from the 2nd of March until the end of July, and my office will continue monitoring what is happening inside the country, and that in and of itself has hopefully some preventive effect as well. On the method, yes, we have access to the South, but we are using a methodology that is very strict. We have very strict criteria. We are looking at violations of all parties, as I mentioned, and we are also in touch with everyone who can give us information and provide information to us. And we have, when we validate information, we need 3 independent sources to verify. So that's why sometimes these things take longer. I mean, that's how it is. But that's extremely important because the legitimacy and the credibility of the type of work that we are doing comes precisely from the impartiality and from the professionalism and the integrity that we put to that process. So when we issue our report, we know what we are saying, and we know that we are saying it in good faith and in best possible conscience. On the framework agreement, look, I mean, it's obviously a question you need to ask the Lebanese government. I think the fact that we have an assessment mission here is a very important signal.
And this is going to be separate, and you will be able to proceed regardless of...
I'm independent. I'm independent as a UN official.
Okay, unless there are any other questions, I'm just giving an opportunity for any other questions, otherwise I think we're going to have to conclude this press conference. So we thank you all for joining us.
شكرا جزيلا. Thank you. مع السلامة. We are going... Okay, sorry, I had an issue with yours. But this is, I thought it was the...
But I think it's obviously...
Sharia, AP is asking.
I think we can. I think but to wait.
Yes, you can, but we have to wait. You have to wait a little bit. أنا كريم ببعت لك على الواتساب. Okay. شو؟ بدي أروح هلا.
أيضا جروب وين فوق هون
ما بعرف
بدنا نشوف إذا معي الفورجي ولا لا
لا ما تجيب الفورجي خلص